Hello boys and girls, welcome to Arts and Crafts at the Library. I'm Miss Susan and I'm here to make a paper polar bear puppet for National Polar Bear Day. Today is actually National Polar Bear Day. So we're going to make a puppet using paper or cardstock, and I also used a little black pom-pom for his nose and some googly eyes, and I needed a black marker for some details on his toes and his ears and of course his little mouth, and I used a straw to make him dance, and I used glue and tape. Now if you don't have a pom-pom or the googly eyes, you can just draw them on, or you could even use a little black button or maybe a bead or something, and you can do the same thing with the eyes. So whatever you have around the house should work fine. I'm going to set him down right there and show you how to start with your cardstock or paper. You'll need a couple of sheets. The first one I'm going to use for the body and for his legs. So it's 8.5 by 11, most standard pieces of printer paper or cardstock. So I'm going to measure about 3.5 inches from the edge over into the center of the paper. And I'm going to just draw a straight line from one side to the next. And that's going to be his body. That's about how wide you need for his body. And then the rest of the sheet is going to be used for his legs. And to make that an even amount for each one, I'm going to measure off 1.25 inches for each leg width. And it doesn't have to be exact, so if you don't have a ruler, you can just draw roughly that width and just cut 4 strips for his legs. So there, I've used my ruler to measure, and that's some math. And now I'm going to be cutting straight along those lines. But before I do that, I want to also draw his head and his ears, and a little tail in the back. There's a little tail. So I'm going to use my cup here to draw around. Let's see, the size of his head, it's somewhere in between these two. So it doesn't have to be exactly like mine, but if you have something round to trace around, that makes it a little bit easier to cut a circle. So I'm going to draw around this cup. And maybe if you have a quarter or something like that, you could trace around it for the ears. I'm just going to probably draw, or just cut mine freehand. So I'll cut out the circle for his head, and then I might fold my paper in half to do the ears so that they come out the same size. So there's his head, and like I said, I'll just fold my paper in half so that when I cut 2 little circles for his ears, they look the same. And I'm doing this, like I said, about the size of a quarter, maybe a little bit bigger. And those are going to be his ears. And then I need a little pointier kind of semicircle or elliptical shape with a flat end for his tail. So here are his 2 ears and his tail and his head already cut out. And now I'm going to cut the body and his 4 legs. And once I get the legs cut out, I'm going to round them off so that his paws aren't just straight across square. They're going to be kind of rounded on the tips, and I'll just go like that. And you could even put them together and cut them all at once, but cardstock's a little bit thick and can be hard to cut if you put too much together at one time. So there are his 4 legs, and this is his body. So now, to do the body, you're going to want to fold in a little lip, just like 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to bring around the other end and I'm going to tape it together. And this is the body. You can also glue, if you don't want to use tape, you could glue that lip to the other side. But I'm just taping it because I want it to be put together quickly to show you. Now that I've got it like this, I need to also make a little crease on the other side so that it's kind of a flat dome, like that, kind of an arch. So I just put it flat and then creased it a little bit so that I've got the body. Now I'm going to take each one of his legs, and I've got the paw end, and I'm just going to go back and forth like an accordion, folding back and forth like this. And this will give his legs some spring. He'll have some spring in his step. So there's one, and I'm going to do that with all 4 legs, going back and forth. And once I finish that, I'll need my black marker to give him some claws on his paws. All right. Now, I'm going to just go ahead and do this on all 4 and then show you one that I've already got put together, just for the sake of time. But you can use your black marker or brown and give him some little toenails. And then you're going to want to tape that flat edge onto the bottom of your dome, his body. And I'm just taping that flat edge right there. And those are his front legs. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the back legs. And here's one I already finished. So now all 4 legs should get taped on to the bottom of your dome. And then it's time to put his head on. So I'm going to take my big circle, and I'm going to, I'm going to take the little circles too, and I want to draw some details. Put a little bit of black right there on one side of the ear. Kind of looks like an eye, but that's going to be his ear. Just give some depth to his ears. And then I'm going to just tape that to the back of his head. Whoop. So there's one, and I'll just take a little piece of tape, or you can glue it, and do the same thing with the other one. So part of that little black semicircle that I drew is covered up because it's behind his head. So there are his ears, and then I'm going to put his little eyes on. Now these are self-sticking. These are little adhesive ones, but most of the time you just need a little dot of glue to hold the eyes on. And let me see there. And then I'm going to glue on the pom-pom, and hopefully it'll stay on while I'm lifting him up to show you. It takes quite a bit of glue to hold a pom-pom on. And I'm going to draw his mouth like a forward and a backward J, or maybe a fish hook. And that looks like his mouth. So there's his little face. And I'm going to just put that right on here with some more glue. But you know what? Before I do that, let me stick the straw on. I think turning it over once I glue his face on won't work. It'll probably fall off while I do that. So let's go ahead and put the straw on. I'm just turning him upside down, and a couple of pieces of tape is all you need to hold that straw in place. And that's how you can make him dance. And he needs his tail. What did I do with his tail? There it is. I'm going to just fold a little flat lip, just like I did for the body, and put his tail right there. I think I'll use glue this time so it doesn't really show. And just stick that on. So there's his little tail. And now I'm going to glue his face on. And I'll use quite a bit of glue for this because his face is pretty heavy with that pom-pom and his googly eyes. But there he is, ready to dance with his friend. He's still drying, so I won't move him around as much. But that's how you can make your own paper polar bear puppets. I've got some polar bear books too, lots of them here at the library, so be sure to come check some out. Let me show you just a few. I've got a really great one here to show you. Do you really want to meet a polar bear? This is written by Marcy Aboff, and it's a great book because it takes you on a trip to the North Pole. And this child's sitting there in class thinking about his report that he's written about a polar bear and how he'd really like to actually pack his sweaters and his snow pants and take a trip to the North Pole. He ends up discovering how big the paws are of a polar bear, and that the back paws are twice the size of the front paws. He finds out that the fur is clear, it's not really white, but that it reflects the snow and the sunlight, and so it looks white because, of course, the polar bears live where there's lots of snow. And he talks about what they eat and how far they can swim. Here they dive down into the Arctic water where it's so cold, but they've got a layer of blubber under their fur that keeps them warm. And they can swim 100 miles without stopping. Anyway, there's a lot of factual information in that book. Same with this one, The Polar Bear Scientist by Peter Lorre. This one tells about all the different things that the scientists use to study the polar bears and how they measure them, and they even check their blood. They take blood samples, and they've learned all kinds of information, not only about the polar bears, but about their environment they live in. And so that's a very interesting book. And this one's an adorable book called Vix, the Polar Bear Cub by Mac. And this little cub was born in a Netherlands zoo in Rotterdam. And this book actually is all about the first year of his life, and it's got some really cute pictures of Vix, the cub. He's darling, and it talks about his mother. Look how sweet. It's like a bear hug. Anyway, come check out a polar bear book for National Polar Bear Day. So glad you joined me today. Bye-bye.